Good evening. This is usmlavideos.net. Once again, thank you for visiting our website this evening. I would like to give you a few thoughts on polymerase chain reaction, PCR amplification. Very important for USMLE examination. And let us see a few things so that we can advance a study of this topic. Please post your comments on this, and if you come across any important points, please post them in the blog so that others can study them and prepare well. Now, PCR. What you need to know, why this is done. There are many uses for this, but the most important one is for the diagnosis. To detect the infectious agents, especially latent viruses. If you take a biopsy, you may not get enough DNA from that specimen. So you have to take the DNA and amplify it. I mean, you need to produce more and more so that you can study it and come to a diagnosis. The second one is to make prenatal genetic diagnosis. A pregnant woman concerned, or you need to do a genetic screening, then PCR can be used. The next one is to detect allelic polymorphisms. Then to establish precise tissue types for transplants. Number 5, you can use RNA analysis after RNA copying and mRNA quantitation by the so-called PT-PCR method. This is like using reverse transcriptase in PCR. So these are the main uses for this process. Now let us discuss what is polymerase chain reaction. Polymerase chain reaction, to say it simply, is just making more DNA from one specimen of DNA. That is, simply you are making more of it. As you know, DNA can be synthesized using DNA polymerase. So this is a polymerase chain reaction. You are using DNA polymerase enzyme to produce more strands of DNA. First you take one template of DNA, then you make a copy of it. Then you have two templates. Those two templates can be used to produce two more strands. Now you have 4 templates. Now those 4 can be used to produce 4 more templates. Now you have 8. And those 8 can be used to produce 16. So it increases exponentially. And the enzyme we use to do that is DNA polymerase. And DNA polymerase is commonly named TAQ polymerase because it was isolated from the bacterium Thermus aquaticus. This enzyme, unlike other enzymes which kill or digest DNA, it assembles a new DNA strand from DNA building blocks. As you know, the DNA building blocks are nucleotides. So DNA polymerase, it uses these nucleotides and forms a new strand of DNA over DNA template you originally have. So that is basically PCR technique. It involves thermal cycling. Thermal cycling, first you produce high temperature and then cold temperature. The high temperature is needed to divide the two strands of DNA so that you can use them as templates. But you need to cool it down back so that the actual synthesis could take place. So both heating and cooling takes place. That's why it is called thermal cycles. This PCR technique was discovered in 1983 by Cary Mullis, and 10 years later he was awarded Nobel Prize in Chemistry for that discovery. Now you can actually find pictures of it anywhere in a nice textbook. But let me give you some other points. First of all, what are the components you need to do PCR? First of all, you need a DNA template to start DNA PCR. Then you need primers. DNA primers, they are the initiators. They initiate the PCR technique. If you have, it's like an engine. Without an engine, you cannot start your car. In the same way, without these primers, you cannot start DNA synthesis. And then you need the raw material from which to make the DNA. These are deoxynucleoside triphosphates. You need them. Those are like bricks. Out of those bricks, you construct the DNA. Then you need a buffer solution to maintain the chemical environment for optimum activity and stability of the DNA polymerase. Then you need divalent cations, magnesium and manganese ions, which can be utilized for PCR mediated DNA metagenesis. So those are the components you need for polymerization. Now what are the steps in PCR? Number one, initialization. The initialization involves like making important conditions for PCR. Number two, denaturation step. In denaturation step, as I said earlier, you heat the solution so that two strands of DNA can separate and work as templates. Number three, annealing. In annealing, the primers, they attach to single-stranded DNA templates to start the polymerase chain reaction. Then extension and elongation step. In extension elongation step, DNA polymerase starts making more and more DNA templates from the original template. So those are the main issues you need to remember when you go for PCR amplification, how it works, what things are needed, what are its uses. These are the things that will be tested. I hope you remember these points, and if you have more points, please visit my website at www.usmlevideos.net and post those comments so others can read and learn and make good scores on USMLE examination. Thank you. Again, our website is www.usmlevideos.net. Thank you. Have a good night.